Hi, it's Karen Stewart. Today we're going to talk to you about what happens when you're at the doorsteps of divorce. What are your options? What are your next steps? Welcome to a conversation about where do I start. Now, obviously, we're talking about where do I start when I have found myself on the doorsteps of a divorce. And today, I'm going to share with you a very pragmatic, common sense equation of how to get started. So the first part of the equation is a little bit of a word of caution, and that is slow down. When we are on the doorsteps of divorce, often it's a result of some either difficult conversation, perhaps one party is shell-shocked, perhaps one party there's a dumper or dumpy. Usually there's some intense emotion around that defining moment where you say, okay, our marriage is over. Our natural response when we realize that we're going to go through a divorce or separation is to go into a state of fear and potentially panic. We just go into the defense and offense right away. And I'm going to just say this is a time to take a deep breath, because you're about to walk up some steps and open a door, and you can create a stairway that is straight and methodical and efficient, or you can go to the dungeon of we'll call it HELL and back. So we're going to try and avoid that. So step one, slow down. The next part of the equation, and a very important part, is you have to research your options. You need to understand what it is that you can do and how are the ways available for you to resolve your issues when you find yourself in the doorsteps of a divorce or separation. One of the challenges that we have is that we have what's called an unconscious bias. And that unconscious bias is when we trigger a response that we don't really know why we're doing it, but we just do it. For example, you call your friend, you just find out your spouse, you and your spouse the marriage is over, and you're not really happy with the reason you just found out why. So what do? You call your family, your friends, and after you get over sort of downloading what's happened, the next thing is, who would you recommend as a lawyer? And I'm not saying that everybody doesn't need to use a lawyer, but I am saying in this day and age, it's not necessary a lot of the time. That may be where you get, but I want you to really take the time to research your options first and recognize that that response is an unconscious bias that we have from the past. So obviously that's one area, which is hiring a lawyer. I hire a lawyer and he hires a lawyer. The other one is looking for non-traditional types of ways to resolve your disputes. So one would be hiring a mediator. There's lots of different types of mediators. There's financial mediators, there's mediators that come from a background of finance, mediators that come from a background of divorce law. Mediators are there to help you and your spouse get to resolution without fighting it out in court. Most mediation is done without prejudice, and what that means is it's not binding. So if I go to mediation, it is voluntary, and I work with a mediator who's working with us to help us get to an outcome that will bring resolution without fighting it out. There's also what's called a med-arb, and those are people who say when you hire the mediator, then they work as a mediator, and then if you guys can't resolve the issues together, the person who is mediating will switch from a mediator to an arbitrator and then arbitrate the file. And what that means is they'll basically act like a judge and make decisions that are binding on both of you. I will say briefly though, I have some serious concerns about the med-arb because you're asking somebody to wear two very, very distinct hats. If somebody's mediating, their clients are likely to feel more open and forthcoming with information and stories and feelings than they are if they feel like that person could quickly take off the hat of a without prejudice mediator and turn that into a with prejudice arbitrator. So I do have some concerns about that. But like I said, today I just want to give you some high levels. Then there's what's called collaborative law. Collaborative law is where you actually hire two lawyers, but the lawyers agree in advance that they will not go to court. So they're kind of saying, you know what, we're gonna battle this back and forth in hopefully a mutually respectful way, but if you guys can't get this done with us, you're going to have to go hire two new lawyers to go to trial for you. That was a sort of a lot of movement in both the United States and Canada, sort of more so 5 to sort of 15 years ago. There's some fundamental flaws in that. There's still some good that goes with collaborative law. It's just, again, you could spend tons and tons of times working with one lawyer, and if you can't get to resolution, time and money, you have to dump that lawyer and go to a new one. And so the intention's good, but often very expensive and maybe not the most efficient way to do it. So once you have done your research, and again, so slow down, do your research, kind of lay it out, and really methodically go through the pros and cons. And that brings me to the next part of the equation, and that is considering the consequences. What are the consequences of your decision? There are positive and negative consequences to all those options. I think it's really important you spend the time to actually research them, ask around, contemplate them. And the best case scenario, you and your spouse can sit down and say, okay, I get, emotions aside, our marriage is coming to an end. We're going to have to go through and make some decisions, but I want to go through it in a really good way. And if we can't come to a good conclusion, then yeah, I guess we'll have to part ways and fight it out. But that's not the intention. So, and I think sometimes if we do that together and we're objective about the consequences of the process we're going to choose, guess what? It's not about us. It's not about our relationship. It's not about what went wrong. It's about moving forward. And if you can go to that discussion pragmatically, objectively, laying out the consequences of the decision, and leave your sort of self-pity party, which we all have, for another day, another time. When a couple is parting ways, there is two things, and there are only two things. It's money and kids. And you will notice that nowhere in that equation of money and kids did I mention emotion, vindication, payback, revenge. If you're going through a difficult time, which you probably are if you're going through divorce, and you need some support, or you're angry and you're looking for some payback or some revenge, even if you can't articulate it in your heart of hearts, you kind of know what I'm saying, go to a counselor. If you find that you're getting off that track of talking about money pragmatically or kids pragmatically, then you are off in a venue that's going to cost you money. It's going to be a huge amount of stress. It's going to suck up your life. It's going to keep you in no man's for who knows how long. Don't go there. Just put the brakes on. No. There's two decisions to be made here: parenting and finances, not emotions. So please, if you are in the process of doing affidavits and stuff like that, can you please keep the emotions out of it? That paper is filed for history. It's there for it, and you can't take those words back. And I was interviewed once along with a judge, and one of the things that she said was the saddest thing is people put these things in affidavits. Once they're there, you can never take those words back. So be really careful about that. The last part of the equation is, I'm just going to say, minusing looking for vindication and looking for some sort of payback for past wrongdoings. We see too many people in trial that are fighting ridiculous things. In fact, if you really want some education to do your research, see what you go into the court system, watch some of the you can go in and watch some of the trials that are going on. Take your time to make really smart decisions, because you can't take back the wrong decision sometimes, and the consequences can be huge. So I hope that helps. I hope that helps you today, and remind yourself of this equation. If you're on the doorsteps of divorce, or somebody you know or care about is, this is a great little video just to remind them to be pragmatic in a time that it's really, really hard to be pragmatic. So thanks for joining me today. I'll see you again.